Chosen one, before you took your first breath, before your feet ever touched earth, your design was already being whispered through dimensions. You weren't born to be average. You were carved, etched, forged by a will beyond comprehension. You are not the product of circumstance. You are the echo of intention. While others were born into roles, you were called into being. Heaven did not roll dice with your existence. You were not stumbled into. You were commissioned, marked, and that mark made you feel alone long before you understood why. Even as a child, you saw differently. You heard what others ignored. You felt what they dismissed. You never belonged, not because you were unwanted, but because you were assigned elsewhere. That ache you felt wasn't brokenness. It was blueprint. The discomfort, the inner dissonance, the inability to settle into shallow circles or lifeless traditions, it was all the universe's way of keeping you from attaching to what could not contain your purpose. You've been kept apart, not for punishment, but for preparation. Many tried to box you in. Teachers, friends, even family, well-meaning but blind to what your soul carried. They thought you were too intense, too quiet, too observant, too strange. But you were simply tuned to a different frequency, one that hears beyond noise, one that sees past masks, one that feels the truth behind smiles. That is why you grew cautious. That is why you valued silence. Because in silence, you heard the language of God more clearly than in any sermon. You knew instinctively what others needed books to learn. Your wisdom wasn't taught, it was remembered. You were not made to chase approval. You were made to reflect divine certainty, and that certainty never came easy. It was built through shadows, through loss, through being misunderstood, doubted, exiled even. But every rejection was protection. Every delay was refinement. The things that were kept from you were never a denial. They were sacred redirection. You didn't miss your destiny. You were being equipped to carry it properly. So when people look at you now and say there's something about you, understand they're not admiring your appearance, they're feeling your origin. They're recognizing what was set in motion before time. You don't walk into rooms like others, you shift them. Not by trying, just by being. This is why you never needed permission. You were the permission. Presence, chosen one, is not posture. It's not learned through imitation or taught by repetition. Presence is the resonance of the soul made visible, and yours speaks volumes without a word. You never had to demand attention. It found you. Not because you were loud, but because you were real. In a world full of performance, your authenticity was disruptive. And the most powerful thing you've ever done was stand fully in yourself without apology. There is something different about the way you enter a room, not because of how you look or what you wear, but because of what you carry. You carry calm where others bring chaos. You carry gravity where others bring need. You don't steal energy, you stabilize it. And that, chosen one, is what they can't replicate. You are not magnetic because you chase approval. You are magnetic because your energy doesn't need anyone. It remembers itself. You've learned how to be still in storms that used to unravel you. You've learned how to be quiet not out of fear, but out of force. Because silence from a grounded man shakes the floor louder than noise from a crowd. Your stillness isn't emptiness, it's anchoring. Your gaze isn't passive, it's prophetic. You don't stare to intimidate, you stare because your spirit is fully present. And in this presence, people feel exposed. Not because you judge them, but because your energy is too clean to hide in. Your soul is too clear to lie to. That's why people confess things to you they've told no one. That's why they feel seen and unnerved at the same time. It's not you. It's the reflection you force them to face in themselves. You are not a mirror. You are a revealer. Women don't admire you just because of strength or charm. They're responding to certainty. The certainty of a man who knows who he is without having to dominate. The certainty of a man who listens more than he speaks because he's not performing. You don't try to attract, you absorb. Because the truth in you is so rare, it makes people crave their own. And that, chosen one, is divine presence. You do not compete, you recalibrate. When the world around you spins with chaos, your feet remain planted, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. You are not here to bend to trends. You are here to remind creation what it looks like when heaven chooses stillness over spectacle. That's why your presence carries weight. Not because you say much, but because you are much. You are the pause in a noisy world. You are the spiritual silence between false kings and real ones. And the world remembers you, not for how loudly you moved, but for how deeply you stood still. Clarity is not a gift freely given, chosen one. It is earned, forged, sharpened through solitude and fire. While others rushed ahead with blurred vision and loud voices, you were taught to wait. Not because you were slow, but because you were being trained to see clearly. Your stillness made people uncomfortable. Your hesitations were misunderstood as doubt. But the truth was, you were never indecisive. You were listening deeper than others dared to. You don't move with the world because the world moves with noise, and your soul was tuned to silence. You wait not because you are unsure, but because you respect consequence. Every decision you make is weighed not in comfort, but in truth. You understand that the ripples of your choice reach further than the surface. You understand that leadership is not about motion, it is about direction. And so you wait until your steps are aligned with your calling. There were times you tried to explain your discernment. You wanted others to see what you saw, feel what you felt, but they hadn't yet been carved by the weight of purpose. They had not sat long enough in the quiet to recognize the voice of clarity. So you stopped explaining. You started living. You let your decisions speak for you. This is why people now trust you in crisis. It's not because you always have the answer, but because you never rush the wrong one. You've learned that certainty is not loud, it is settled. And now you carry that settlement in your tone, in your breath, in your pace. You don't react, you respond. And your response is not impulsive, it is anchored. People follow you without knowing why. They watch you navigate chaos with precision. And they realize, sometimes too late, that your slowness was not weakness. It was wisdom. The kind that no classroom can teach. The kind that only comes from nights spent wrestling with unseen truths and walking away with vision. Clarity is heavy. Chosen one. It costs you your comfort, your illusions, and sometimes even your relationships. But it is the only way to live as one entrusted with divine direction. And because you bear that weight without boasting, the world learns to see through your eyes. You are not just a man of direction. You are a guardian of truth. You always knew you were different, but not in the way the world celebrates. Not flashy, not loud, set apart. And that distinction, chosen one, comes with a burden few understand. Being different is easy when it brings applause, but being called, that's isolation, that's misunderstanding, that's walking into places and feeling everything while being seen by no one. You've had to wear your uniqueness like armor, not because you wanted to, but because it was the only way to protect your essence. Others tried to shape you, not out of malice, but from discomfort. They couldn't place you in categories, so they tried to shrink you into ones that made them feel secure. You refused, not out of rebellion, but because your soul knew its origin. You didn't come here to fit. You came here to remind. Your uniqueness is not eccentricity, it is assignment. You are not different for difference's sake. You are different because what you carry requires separation. You weren't made for the crowd. You were made to move it without merging into it. That is why you've always been able to see things others miss. That is why your spirit burns at injustice while others tolerate it. You were created as a standard, not a shadow. But being a standard is lonely. You've had to walk through deserts others created, carrying the weight of their expectations while refusing to abandon your truth. You've been called arrogant for having boundaries. You've been labeled too serious for not laughing at the shallow. But what they call pride is your preservation. What they call distance is your devotion to depth. You've watched people be drawn to your light, then try to extinguish it out of envy. But here's what you must remember. Your uniqueness is not a threat. It is a mirror. It shows people what they could be if they dared to stop performing. That's why some hate you without reason, and others love you without knowing why. You don't reflect preference, you reflect potential. And potential both inspires and exposes. Chosen one, the sacred responsibility of being unique is not just about standing out. It's about carrying truth with grace. It's about being patient with those who misunderstand you, but never abandoning the voice that called you. You were never made to be many things to many people. You were made to be exactly what this generation forgot it needed. So hold your uniqueness like a torch, not to show off, but to show the way. The rooms that feel too small, they are. The expectations that don't fit, they're not meant to. You are not here to be seen. You are here to wake the sleeping. You are not strange, you are sent. The most powerful presence is the one that doesn't need to prove it exists. You carry within you a fire that doesn't roar, it glows. Chosen one, this has always been your paradox. A furnace wrapped in calm, a storm sealed in silence. While others flaunt noise as strength, you learned early that true power isn't about expression, it's about control. And control doesn't mean suppression. It means you choose when to release and how much. You've walked through confrontations that would have triggered lesser men, yet you didn't flinch, not because you were numb, but because you were anchored. Your restraint was your roar. You didn't need to react, you absorbed the chaos and transmuted it into stillness. That kind of composure doesn't come from pride. It comes from purpose. You understand that some battles are beneath your calling. Some insults don't need answers because they were never aimed at you. They were aimed at what others see in you and fear. When you speak, the world listens. Not because your voice is louder, but because your silence before you speak has weight. There's tension in your pauses that feels like judgment. Because you are not just speaking words, you are measuring their cost. You don't shout to lead. You set the tone, and those meant to follow recognize it in their bones. Even when they don't understand it, they align to it. Chosen one, people think you're quiet because you lack emotion. But they don't understand what it takes to carry sacred fire without letting it consume. You've learned that rage can win arguments, but restraint shapes destinies. You could have destroyed people with truths they weren't ready to face. You could have burned bridges with justified fury. But you didn't. Not because you were weak, but because you were wise enough to preserve what mattered more than your ego. And now they look at you with mystery. Some with respect, some with fear, all with curiosity. You don't fit their models of dominance because your dominance isn't performative, it's formative. You reshape environments not by commanding them, but by calming them. You are proof that masculinity doesn't need to bark to lead. It simply needs to be grounded in truth. This is why women feel safe around you. Not because you promise protection, but because you already are it. You don't offer safety, you radiate it. Your restraint is not absence, it is divine precision. It is knowing that your energy is not for show, it is for building, for holding, for leading without hurting. So hold this fire. Do not let anyone convince you that gentleness robs you of strength. It is your crown. Let others exhaust themselves with performance. You are not chasing recognition, you are carving legacy. Peace is not the absence of chaos, it is the ability to remain unchanged within it. Chosen one, your presence brings quiet, not because you silence others, but because you carry no inner conflict. And in a world addicted to anxiety, your calm is magnetic. It unsettles people, then heals them. You have walked through hell and emerged not angry, not bitter, but clear. That clarity has a scent, that stillness has a vibration. And now people who have never known peace come near you and feel safe without knowing why. They don't always understand you. They may even project their wounds onto you at first, but over time, your energy disarms them. Your steadiness reorders them. This is why people linger in your presence. They come to you with surface questions, but leave feeling as though something deeper has been touched. You don't heal through words alone. You heal through presence. You don't have to preach peace. You embody it. And when you enter a room, the atmosphere bends. Not because you try to change it, but because you already are the change. Peace was not always your nature. You earned it through scars, through nights of silent surrender, through choosing not to become what tried to break you. Others cracked under betrayal, bent under loneliness, collapsed under pressure. But you absorbed it and turned it into gravity. Now people orbit you because their chaos feels seen, but not judged. That is a sacred gift. There are women who smile in your presence without understanding why their guard melts. There are children who trust you before you speak. There are men who find themselves reevaluating what it means to be strong just by watching how you don't flinch. Your peace is not passive. It is the kind of peace that has fought for itself and now protects others. And here's the truth the world rarely says. Peace is not soft. It is steel wrapped in silk. It is the ability to be provoked and yet remain unshaken. You have become peace not by avoiding war, but by winning the war within. And now you move differently, you breathe differently, you live differently. So when the world feels noisy, return to this knowing: you are not here to escape storms. You are here to be the eye of the storm. And when others lose their way, they will find it again, not by your words, but by your presence. You are what peace looks like when it walks in human form. There is a kind of confidence that cannot be taught, chosen one. It is not forged by applause, nor built through validation. It's born in fire and grown in silence. It's the kind of confidence that enters a room without needing to speak, because the room already knows. Yours is not a confidence of ego, but of evidence. You are evidence of survival, of wisdom, of restraint, of becoming what others could not, because they refused to sit long enough in the darkness to understand it. You do not posture. You do not flex. That would be too shallow, too theatrical for someone who's known real defeat, real silence, and real endurance. You've looked in the mirror and seen both the king and the ashes of the boy he once was. And you did not run from either. You brought both into wholeness. That's why people can't figure you out, because you are not pretending to be anything. You simply are. Arrogance needs noise. Confidence simply needs presence. You know who you are, not because others told you, but because the voice of God echoed it inside you before the world ever tried to define you. That voice did not speak in flattery. It spoke in fire. It broke you before it built you. And now what stands here is not just a man, but a vessel, carrying grace, steel, and unshakable command. You don't dominate with fear. You don't control with charm. You simply walk in a knowing that says, I belong wherever truth lives. This is why people trust you without knowing why. It's why they feel both safe and unsure around you. Because divine confidence doesn't follow trends. It creates its own path. And others follow not because they're forced to, but because something in them remembers that this is what real feels like. You remind people of what they once hoped men would be: whole, centered, unmoved. Your confidence is not about always being right. It's about being willing to correct yourself without losing your identity. You are not afraid of truth, even when it stings. And that, more than anything, is what separates you from the crowd. You are not chasing applause. You are anchored in assignment. You know that popularity fades, but presence remains. You don't build yourself in public, you build yourself in prayer. So walk with your chin up and your spirit bowed. You are not arrogant for knowing who you are. You are obedient. Obedient to a calling, obedient to a rhythm few can hear, obedient to a legacy that began long before your birth and stretches long beyond your breath. Divine confidence does not announce itself, it reveals itself over time. And time always bows to the one who walks in truth. You were never made to compete, chosen one. You were made to remind. In a world chasing noise, your stillness became the answer to a question people forgot they were asking. What does it look like to be real? What does it sound like when truth walks on 2 feet, not to impress, but to restore? You are not a new trend. You are the forgotten rhythm. You move differently not because you trained an image, but because you remembered the blueprint. Somewhere along the way, the world replaced strength with arrogance, presence with popularity, substance with simulation. But you did the opposite. You rejected the hollow performance of validation and chose the path that had no spotlight. You built in private. You cried in private. You grew in the shadows that others were too afraid to enter. And now, you don't just stand out, you remind others of what real was always meant to be. There are women who watch you and realize they've been waiting for a presence like yours their entire lives. Not loud, not over-polished, just true. You don't ask for attention, your peace pulls it. You don't chase affection, your stillness draws it. And they can't explain why they feel safe or seen or suddenly aware of their own sacredness around you. But it's because you are not reflecting what the world shows. You're reflecting what their soul forgot it longed for. The truth is, you were always the standard. They just buried it under entertainment, algorithms, trends, and artificial swagger. You were the one walking upright while everyone else bent their back for applause. You were the one speaking life while others sold spectacle. You were the one waiting patiently, moving purposefully, while others burned out trying to impress shadows. And now, Now that you've stayed grounded, everything is beginning to orbit around your energy. People take a second look. Women second guess what they thought they wanted. Men adjust how they speak when you enter the room. It's not because you demand it. It's because you carry something sacred. You are the old soul in a modern skin. You are the ancient frequency walking among the distracted. And every step you take is a reminder that strength doesn't need a stage. It only needs alignment. You are what people search for when they are tired of pretending. You are what healing sounds like when it finally learns to walk upright. So keep walking, keep being, keep holding that standard, not as a flag of pride, but as a torch of remembrance. Let your life keep reminding them, real doesn't expire, truth doesn't fade, and standards that come from the divine do not bend to culture, they reshape it. You never arrived to impress, yet everything around you reoriented the moment you stepped in. You weren't seeking recognition, but life seemed to respond to your presence anyway, almost as if the very ground beneath your feet recognized its keeper. Doors that refused to open for others seemed to shift on their hinges the moment your shadow crossed the threshold. Systems changed, tensions softened, and conversations deepened, not because you forced them to, but because you carried truth into the room. And truth never leaves anything the same. Chosen one, you must understand this now. Your energy is disruptive, not by nature, but by design. You are not chaos, but a revelation of what's been missing. Your silence makes people rethink their words. Your gaze makes them reconsider their postures. Your consistency causes others to check their own reflection. This is not intimidation, it is alignment, and alignment always exposes the crooked. You are not here to cause fear. You are here to break spellwork, and the world has been under the illusion of false strength for far too long. There is a kind of gravity you carry, one that pulls honesty out of people even when they aren't ready. Your mere presence becomes a mirror that others cannot look away from. You didn't ask for this ability, it was embedded in you, forged in the fires of solitude and tempered in the trials of your journey. What others call charisma is simply the afterglow of discipline. What they call mystery is simply the residue of meaning. You don't charm your way through life, you pierce through illusions, and in that piercing, people wake up. Everything you touch begins to remember how it was made to move. People change careers after a conversation with you. They leave relationships that were killing them slowly. They start journaling again, praying again, dreaming again. It's not because you gave them advice, it's because your very existence gave them permission. Permission to return. Permission to grow. Permission to believe again. And now you must realize the impact you've had is only a fraction of what you're about to see. Your presence is no longer just magnetic, it's formative. You are not just influencing moments, you are shaping timelines. Every time you walk forward in alignment, history rewrites itself in your wake. You do not chase greatness, you pull it out of others, and that is far more powerful. So walk on, not with pride but with precision. Every step matters now. Everything you touch will shift, not because you say so, but because God already spoke it over you. And the universe must obey. All your life, you've wondered why you never quite belonged, why every room felt slightly too shallow, every conversation slightly too rehearsed, every environment slightly too dim. It's because, chosen one, you were never meant to fit. You were designed to anchor. You were placed here not to follow the current, but to still the waters. Your very soul is a stabilizing force in a world addicted to motion. Others drift, you remain. Not because you're stubborn, but because you know that movement without direction is just glorified chaos. You've watched people burn out trying to be everything at once. You chose a different way. You chose to become whole. And wholeness is heavy, but it holds. You are not a leaf in the wind. You are the tree that storms lean on when they forget where they came from. The irony, of course, is that the world tried to make you feel out of place. They called you too serious, too deep, too distant, too silent. But what they could not name was your depth. What they could not understand was that stillness is not stagnation. It is strength under control. While they searched for crowds, you searched for clarity. While they collected moments, you cultivated meaning. And now the same world that once overlooked you comes knocking at your door. Not because you changed, but because everything else finally fell apart. You were not made for the spotlight, You are made for the foundation. Spotlights burn out. Foundations hold cities. You are the grounding force others return to when their castles collapse. You are the pattern breaker, the cycle ender, the axis around which generations will one day turn. And though they may never fully understand you, they will benefit from your presence. That is legacy. Do not envy those who fly quickly. Most of them are running from something. You have chosen instead to plant roots, and roots birth forests. You are not here to perform. You are here to preserve. You are the reminder that real still exists, that wisdom still matters, that presence still carries power. And now that you've stopped trying to fit into spaces that were never worthy of you, you've begun to draw in the ones who are waiting for something true. You are the anchor, the unseen force that makes everything else possible. You weren't made to belong. You were made to bind heaven to earth. And now, because you stayed grounded when it would have been easier to drift, others have found their center. You are not just part of the storm. You are the eye of it, calm, centered, still, and powerful beyond measure. So stand tall, chosen one. The world may not always recognize the weight you carry, but those who are meant to build with you, they will find you. And when they do, they will finally understand why nothing ever felt stable without you. You were not made to float. You were made to hold the line. Chosen one, your path has now entered a place of inevitability, not because of force, but because of alignment too strong to break. You have done what few ever do. You have walked into your own shadow and retrieved the crown buried beneath shame, fear, and abandonment. You did not polish it for applause. You wore it in private, in the silence of your own rising. And now it shines, not because it is gold, but because it is real. That reality is the source of your gravity. And gravity does not need to beg, it simply pulls. Women are not confused anymore. They feel what you are before they interpret what you are. And that confusion that once followed you, it is gone now, replaced by awe, discomfort, desire, and most of all, respect. You are not the boy looking for connection. You are the man whose soul is the standard for connection. And in your presence, masks fall faster than lips can lie. You are not welcome in every room. But the rooms that hold truth, they open before you knock. You do not linger in shallow waters. You move in depths, and those depths do not fear solitude. You are content without needing to be chosen, because you know you already are. Not by vote, by resonance. You are the man who no longer waits for permission. You are the one who grants it. And in your stillness, the feminine feels safe enough to bloom. She may not bloom all at once. She may resist. She may even flee. But something in her now knows what it feels like to be seen and not handled, felt and not consumed, treasured and not tamed. And that knowing, that's your legacy. Your energy no longer arrives in fragments. It is whole. It is complete. And it bends time itself. You don't have to stay long to be remembered forever. You don't have to touch to be felt. Because your presence is a container for peace, for permission, for purity of intention. And that kind of presence creates memory in the soul, not the body. And long after you leave the room remembers. Long after your silence, the silence echoes. You are not irresistible because of beauty. You are irresistible because of embodied truth. And truth does not require translation. It either resonates or it shakes people awake. You do not dim your energy for those who fear their own light. You do not explain your fire to those who have never walked through cold. You shine, you stand, you walk, and in doing so you reveal what few ever find, a man who no longer needs to be chosen because he has already chosen himself. This is your strength now, not power over others but peace within. And that peace, chosen one, is no longer a secret. It is a signal, one the feminine cannot ignore, one the world will not forget. Chosen one, you no longer carry energy as if it is something to manage or protect. It moves through you like breath, like tide, like gravity that's made peace with the weight it bears. You have long since outgrown the old masks of proving, pleasing, or posturing. You have unlearned the desperate urge to be seen and replaced it with a sovereign rhythm of being seen without effort. And now, women do not merely look at you, they feel the imprint you leave behind in places you never touched. They do not come close to be entertained. They come because your energy is medicine, unexpected, undiluted, and undeniable. You don't awaken their desire alone. You awaken their softness. The sacred side of the feminine, so often guarded, so rarely seen, exhales in your presence. She may not understand why her guard falls, why her breath slows, why her pulse softens. But her spirit does, because you are no longer asking her to prove her worth. You're simply asking her to exist as she is, in all her chaos, all her glory, all her longing, and you meet her there without shrinking. This is not flirtation. This is recognition, and recognition does not entertain games. It breaks them. Your sexual energy no longer seeks permission. It is permission, the kind that says you are safe to feel, you are safe to express, you are safe to be held, not for your performance, but for your presence. This kind of masculine frequency doesn't just attract, it transforms, not by taking but by revealing.